right. We can go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar about the H2O Feature Store 1.0 release. My name is Morgan Mills. I'm on the marketing team here at H2O. And before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Please feel free to send us your questions throughout the session via the Q&A tab. Chris, Kuba, and Pratibha will answer questions throughout the presentation, and then we'll also have a few minutes at the end for a live Q&A and a few more questions that we didn't get to. I'd also like to announce the H2O Open Source Gen AI World Conference that we are hosting, taking place in San Francisco on November 7th. As a special thank you for joining us today, we are going to offer you all a complimentary pass to join us in person next month. We will be sending out a follow-up email later today that will include a code to use along with additional information about the conference and, of course, the recorded webinar. We have 3 speakers for our session today. We have Pratibha Sugarman, Director of Technology for Data and AI in the Chief Data Office at AT&T. We have Jacob Hava, or Kuba, who is the engineering lead for the H2O Feature Store. I'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker, who is Chris Simicat, Director of Customer Solutions at H2O. Chris is responsible. He is the product manager for Feature Store and responsible for the financial services practice. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Chris.
Great. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to make the presentation large so we can just kind of jump into it. And so in terms of agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the motivations, concepts, and definitions. We'll touch on some of the capabilities in the Feature Store overall. We'll also discuss what's new in Feature Store 1.0, and then we'll take a quick look where Pratibha is going to talk about Feature Store at AT&T, and then we'll also do a quick demo of the UI and a notebook with some example code, and just kind of show you how you can mix and match the workflows and things of that nature. So what's driving us here? What motivates us to want to have a feature store? Well, if you're a data scientist, you're a machine learning engineer, you do some sort of analytics, you work with data. We've all seen flavors of this survey in the past where these sort of professionals spend an inordinate amount of their time doing things other than modeling, understanding, getting insights from the data, and delivering business value. In fact, they spend 60 to 80% of their time sourcing data, cleaning it, doing all sorts of curation so that they can do the other things. And so what we're hoping that, when you use our feature store, you will see a utility and an economy of scale where over time, multiple projects, additional feature sets and data assets get integrated. This starts, shrinking. So then there's more time to do things that are of greater value to the organization once you have the right data pipelines in place. And we provide a scalable framework to facilitate that. There are, some definitions we'd like to kind of cover real quickly just to make sure that we're, having the same mental model as we kind of discuss things further. A feature is a collection of curated data used both for model training and inferencing. Feature engineering is a process that collects, joins, encodes, and transforms data for consumption. A feature set is a collection of features that are assembled together for a modeling objective. A project is a repository of feature sets used to organize and separate work. A feature store is a repository that manages and governs projects, feature sets, ingestions, and users. An offline store manages features for large-scale storage and retrieval. An online store manages features for low latency storage and retrieval. And a feature catalog is an inventory of the various feature sets discoverable by users. A couple of more quick concepts just that are nuances from our feature store as well. We have a concept of derived feature sets, which basically you can take a parent feature set and create these derived children feature sets, and that enables the automatic propagation of data from the parent to the children as incremental ingestions occur. Transformation pipeline gets applied in this process, and in terms of some of our supported pipelines, you can use Spark pipelines. You could take feature engineering modules from driverless AI, and then we also support join operations. We also have something called ML datasets, and this is a way to create a fixed data set for the purposes of building a model. This is by constructing a feature view, so a view of features from the feature set, and this represents, a state of the universe that you want to model against. And these are based on queries, so it's very SQL-like in terms of like, putting things together with filtering and join conditions and some of the other operators that you'd expect. And this enables you to, accelerate your model building process and not have to like go directly into your databases and things like that because you're just working natively in the feature store. In terms of what you can expect or what you can hope to get from using our feature store, we'll help you optimize the feature engineering and model building processes, connects information across multiple platforms, and establishes consistency and transparency across the machine learning lifecycle. And it brings together a diversity of skill sets needed to deliver transformational value with AI. We do this, through the way that we satisfy multiple user personas and just the general architecture and approach to how we've implemented features in the feature store. This is another look at the feature store in terms of, we can connect to a variety of data sources. So this is anything from your cloud providers like Snowflake and Databricks, things in AWS, in Azure and Google Cloud. And once you pull in the data using the pipelines, you can transform the data. You can, we can build recommendations that, show related features or can show you what's popular by what's being accessed frequently. And then in the feature store, in conjunction with our ML Ops offering, provides the ability to do data drift and bias identification. And then a mix of the ML Ops and the feature store can provide you data lineage and model lineage. Then again, we are casting a wide net with the consumption and use of the feature store in terms of there's value add for data engineers and ML engineers. There's things for data scientists and business analysts, and that's through the various consumption layers and the framework to set up the data ingestion pipelines. So you can, users who are familiar with SQL or using a GUI or their BI tools or various notebook interfaces, they can, work in things that are very things that they're accustomed to. So in terms of some of our capabilities, obviously it's very critical for feature stores to support ingest and retrieval. This is the bread and butter of what feature stores even are. We support an ability for time travel that is to recreate the state of the feature sets at a different point in time. So think about your transactional data sets and you want to be able to recreate how the world looked at a certain point in time. This is also facilitated with feature versioning. So we have major and minor feature versions, which minor versions cover incremental ingest and the major versions cover schema changes. As an enterprise platform, we support all kinds of security, role-based access control, and authentication and authorization. We're a fully integrated component into the H2O AI cloud. So there's single sign-on integrations. There's different user roles, and that can be assigned to both the project and the feature set level. And there's more in terms of our ability with the CLI in the back end to facilitate search using the CLI or even in the web UI. Just to cover real quickly what's new in Feature Store 1.0. In the UI, we've enabled the ability to, manage the feature set versioning directly through the UI instead of just through the CLI. We can list and see versions of the feature sets, download a list of the features, and schedule ingests all through the UI. Part of our vision with the feature store is that anything that you can do in the CLI should have a corresponding workflow in the UI. And while the CLI will tend to be a little bit ahead of the UI, we part of why we're at 1.0 now is the near parity between the two experiences. So that's the milestone that we're recognizing, is that we have a fully enriched user experience, whether you're more comfortable in a programmatic interface or you require the empowerment of a web UI. In terms of the CLI itself, we allow you to now change the time travel column as part of a major version change. Usually when you register a feature set, you can either use an automatically generated time travel column, or you can specify one, but that had previously been immutable. We offer support for key pair authentication for Snowflake data sources now, so that's a nice security integration. And then one of the other things in the CLI is that if you are at a feature set or a project, you'll be able to enter the corresponding piece in the UI directly from the client. So it would instantiate a web URL that you can click, and then that would take you to the feature set or the project that you are looking at for the CLI and present it to you in your web browser. In terms of some changes to the backend support, we are very proud to announce that we have alpha support for using Snowflake as the storage layer for the offline store. While we've already had native support for table and cursor objects as data sources for Feature Store, this is the first shift in terms of like how Feature Store is implemented in its backend to support multiple types of offline stores. So the storage will actually be in Snowflake itself. We have also dramatically improved the scalability and throughput of the online feature store. Our internal benchmarking shows that in the latest version change, it's a 100x improvement. And then we introduced an API to display parent and child derived feature sets so that the lineage is a little bit easier to follow along. You can see our full release notes at the link below. In terms of what is our feature store, this is sort of like a nice high-level overview that covers things from our support for ingestion of real-time and batch data. And then we have these, the feature pipelines, the engineering pipelines, and these can be managed by us using cron-based scheduling and the various types of connectors that we have and Spark jobs that you could write and submit into the management on our side. Or we also accept pushing mechanisms where your ETL tool of choice uses our client to push data into the feature store. The feature store itself is comprised of several components. There's an online store, which, as we said, is for low latency storage and retrieval. This uses caching to facilitate that low latency. The offline store is for massive storage and retrieval, and this is using object storage unless you are in our preview to use the Snowflake integration. And then we have a metadata registry that ties things together, controls the back-end pieces, that associates the data assets amongst themselves and other metadata that you can attribute to your feature sets and projects. The back end is scalable. This is a Kubernetes-based application and uses in-memory technologies that are scalable to accelerate. And so as much resourcing as you're willing to throw into it, the arbitrarily scalable it can be. And then this is enables the consumption side of things in terms of going for real-time predictions, batch predictions, model training, plugging in your notebook, your BI tool, and just getting general value out of things. In terms of the user personas, again, we've indicated that we try to cast a wide net in terms of persona support. And so for data engineers and machine learning engineers, these are, very much software engineering type personas where the users are very comfortable writing code. They'll be consumers of our Python and Scala clients, and they will, get utility out of the feature store for streamlining data quality management across the machine learning pipelines. They'll enjoy the ease of use of the RESTful APIs and the client layers, and just using the feature store as a framework to standardize their pipelines and to gain utility and reusability of the pipelines throughout. And this allows them to systematically ingest and store and save on computational cross resources by deduplicating redundancy. And then, as I said, since this is a Kubernetes based deployment, it's a scalable operational system. In terms of for data scientists, this is sort of our broadest persona, because some data scientists may be highly competent and capable software engineers, and others may be closer to a business analyst and anywhere in between. And so for them, this provides ease to optimize model production performance for all data science projects by helping them manage features. Having well curated features will help the model building process and improve accuracy, and again the standardization and reusability of the data pipelines for the creation of the feature sets and the registration in the offline and the online stores helps make the optimization to production all the faster. And then for the business analyst, this is again, as we're trying to democratize AI and as we're trying to promote collaboration, this user is very comfortable with BI tools or using Excel and other sort of like end user computing tools to interact with data. They tend to be subject matter expertise and business application of the data, not so much the technology components to it. And so this is a user that requires empowerment. And so that they, we can connect their various tools into the feature store, or they can consume things using different clients or the web UI itself. And that enables them to, determine influence, provide feedback, and develop insight around what's going on in the data and how to get impact from the things that they're observing. So as I've mentioned, the feature store is a component of the H2O AI cloud. And while there have been many webinars that cover the other components, we won't address it all here. At a high level, you come with a purpose, you bring your idea and data, and then you make, operate, and innovate using our flexible, extensible, distributed, and scalable architecture to deliver an impact to democratize AI across your organization. Where Feature Store fits in this whole story is as part of Make. You make feature sets, you make pipelines, you make models from these things, and then it also is part of Operate because it works in conjunction with our MLOps tooling to help you operationalize models, the feature sets, deal with drift and bias detection and things in the operation of the models when you actually use these things at scale in production. All of this together kind of helps promote AI maturity and growth because it helps you create a unified view of the data, the reduction in the consolidation of computational spend, the maintenance of governance standards, which Prativa can tell you much more about in AT&T's context, and then increasing data science productivity by simplifying and standardizing certain things and just abstracting away certain complexities that consume an inordinate amount of their time. It optimizes model performance and fosters enterprise collaboration through its wide-spanning persona support. So I see Prativa has joined us, so I will now hand things over to Prativa. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so in AT&T, in the past couple of years, we have been focused on building our own internal AI as a service ecosystem. And as part of the ecosystem, our primary goal was to accelerate the entire machine learning AI ML lifecycle. And as Chris mentioned, there is the make aspect, there's a deploy, and there's also govern. There are different steps, right? The key areas where Feature Store, H2O Feature Store, that's co-developed with AT&T, is playing a role is in the make aspect, where we want to bring in features. And we all know that a data scientist spend a lot of time in curating the data and accessing the data and creating those features. The primary goal is to avoid all the silos that are happening across the data science community and bring them and promote shareability and reusability of features, and also to democratize AI. So, we launched H2O Feature Store within AT&T April of last year, and since then we have tens and thousands of features onboarded. And this is a self-service tool. We deployed this as a self-service tool, so we empowered our data science community, both professional data scientists and citizen data scientists, because we do have a UI component that has a point and click and drag and drop capability that allows us to set up feature sets and promote ingesting hundreds of models, and which is what we did. And cumulative, we have seen a model lift of 34%. And so there are several use cases we do promote, but I want to really focus on the two main use cases as part of this webinar. So with that, next slide. Yep, thank you. All right, so as we all know, in telecommunication industry, the mobility fraud is it's a billion-dollar industry. There is a sophisticated fraud ring that's really focused on stealing iPhones, right? Device leakage is a big problem across all of the different sectors, not just fraud, right? Across all the different business units. So for fraud, what we are, there are several types of frauds that we are focused on. There are account takeovers where the fraudster assume the identity of an established tenured customer and add more lines to the existing account, or upgrade an existing phone, or create even a new account with an assumed identity. So we know there's a sophisticated ring going on, and this is not just a problem with AT&T. This is a problem across all the US carriers. So the only way we can be ahead of the game is to use AI ML technologies and all the real-time AI ML capabilities to combat fraud. We started off being more reactive, where we identify where the fraud has happened, and then we realize and where how to address the gap, how to look at or applying rules to stop the leakage, the fraud events that are happening. So that's how we started, and eventually we moved into AI ML space, where we started building real-time application, real-time AI solutions that would address it in a proactive fashion. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview. So when it comes to customers, they get to access, or they get to access different sales channels. They can walk into a retail store, they can go online, they can do it via customer care, via phone. So different sales channels, and all of these features that are coming in from different sales channels are the critical data points that we need to build models, where we need to plug in AI solution across these different channels and be able to apply that. So this is where we are, in fact, curating the data and creating those features and bringing that into H2O Feature Store, and also making it available across all the different data scientist communities within the team, so they can leverage what's already been built. And then once the features are readily available, we leverage H2O Driverless AI to build the model, to create and fine tune the features, and again, re-ingest that into Feature Store. And finally, once the model is built, in just within a click of a button, we have that in production in real-time transactions, and we are able to deploy that. Once the model is deployed, we still leverage Feature Store in terms of looking up real-time, freshest, most accurate features that is needed to really improve the model accuracy in production. So as you can see, we have several AI models plugged in different solution. I don't want to go into details of that, but the focus is to be more proactive in terms of identifying fraud. In fact, the fraudster, they have their own AI ML program that is really looking at where the leakages are and how to leverage the gaps. We have to be ahead of the game. So we are using real-time AI ML solutions and all the tools that is needed here to be as part of that, to be part of that game. Next slide, please. This slide shows where we were 3 years ago, right? When we first started, of course, when we have our own management fraud applications, and it was all completely rules driven. And that's how we started. We need to understand the data. We need to identify where the gaps are, where the fraud events are happening, and then we apply rules. And what the long term of that is, too many rules, it becomes really unmanageable to really understand what rules are being applied for what specific channels. So and again, it's a more reactive step that we take. So we had to plug in as a second step, we need to look at AI ML solution, where we added more 5 to 10 models to reduce the fraud events. As you can see, the blue line, the chart over here, it shows significant fraud events that's being stopped in the second year. However, in the third year, what we did was we leveraged H2O AI Feature Store, and that really accelerated the model building and democratized AI, where we started leveraging features that were curated across data science community, and we were able to deliver that and quickly to address the problems. So we now have 50 plus models in production, and that significantly brought down the fraud events within just a matter of 3 years. Again, this is a iterative process. We also do, and the fraud landscape continuously changes. So there is no one perfect model. There's always an iterative process that we need to go in and to improve. As the fraud landscape changes, we need to make it better. So having the feature store really helps, because we democratize the features that are built across different organizations. And what I want to really focus on in the previous slide, please, Chris, um, in the previous one. Okay, what I want to focus on here is the privacy and governance. When it comes to fraud, we are our primary goal is to make sure that we protect our data, the privacy and the compliance of our customers' identity. So this fraud entire use case, it has a lot of sensitive information, and Feature Store really helps has the privacy and the compliance workflows inbuilt, and also supports anonymization of the sensitive features. We are able to plug in and protect our customers' privacy, the privacy of the data, as part of the entire workflow. And in fact, the anonymization helps retain the integrity of the data itself and still allows us to build models on top of it. And when it comes to production flows, we plug in with our privacy and compliance teams, go through the compliance workflows, and get the approval needed to plug the real data, use the real data in the production pipeline. So that's the biggest advantage that we have, especially in a corporation as large as AT&T. Privacy is critical, and where we need to be in the business of protecting the customer's identity. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a second use case that I have. This is pretty much as we launched mid 2022. There was a meeting that we were with our VP in Chief Data Office, and we were looking at churn model. And the current churn model at that time had a performance of 60 to 66%. And our VP said, "Hey, let's go into Feature Store. Let's look at what features do we have, and let's see if we can leverage and go for leverage that and improve the performance." And that's when the exploratory and the discovery process started. Within a matter of 2 hours, and 2 hours, we were able to identify a feature set that would be really relevant for the model, and we saw huge lift, 11% lift in the actual performance. And in about a day or two, we were able to deploy the model in production. We were able to reap the benefits of having this lift. So the biggest advantage of having a feature store in place, the H2O feature store in place, is the time to market. Identifying the features, reusing the features, and from the ideation stage to production stage, it took less than a week for us to make it happen. So that's a big win for us. And this is again a slide that showcases how the feature importance plot changed completely. The 66% model that was originally the original one that we had, it had a set of feature, and then we incorporated the account activity features from Feature Store. And as you can see, all the red ones that are highlighted here are coming in from the new feature set that we got from Feature Store. And it completely, the top 20 features are in fact most of them, 95% of them, are from the new feature set that we incorporated, and we saw the huge lift and the business benefit. The biggest one that I want to highlight here is the time to market, how and leveraging the existing features that are already in Feature Store, that involve probably heavy computation, and also shareability and reusability of data. With that, I'll hand it back to Chris.
Great, thank you for that. I love that use case example because it just kind of really drives home the utility that can happen with having this whole thing operationalized and at scale and widely adopted across the organization. So thank you for sharing that with everyone. Okay, so real quickly, we're going to kind of showcase a few of the UI components and give a demo of the feature store. So this is our internal deployment of the feature store. And as you see, we arrive at the homepage once we're logged in. And what you see before you is a dashboard that gives you a sense of some of the activity in the feature store, and then some of my particular activity in this particular instance. Some other things, we can see what feature sets are particularly popular, and this is based off of number of retrievals. You can also pin feature sets. So if there are things that I wanted to just have rapid access to, I could pin them and they'd be available here. And then you can see some of the activity that I've had both in the feature sets and in the projects. I do see a question, so we're going to take a look at this real quickly. Go ahead, you should be able to unmute. Okay, well, feel free to type your question if you didn't want to ask it out loud. So we'll get back into it. You can see the list of all of the projects as well. We can search for them by name. And then there's also the list of the feature sets, and you could also search for these by name. You can also, we have immediate views for things that I've created as a user as well from the project and the feature set level. And then if we have something called an internal review process, which allows you to create a stopgap in the feature publishing pipeline. And so how this works is there are three configuration modes where a reviewer has to approve either all pending feature sets, only ones that are labeled containing sensitive features, or you can disable the feature entirely and then all feature sets will get published and then this area would never be populated. We can have a view of the jobs that have been running, and you can see I kicked off a couple jobs just yesterday and a few of them had failed. We also have the UI gives you the ability to look at the project permission. So the things that I have different roles for. So I'm a consumer in this particular project. I'm an editor here and I'm the owner here. And then for different feature sets, I can look at like feature sets that I've created that, or that I have access to, and what are my permissions in those, or where do I have pending requests for access. In terms of being able to create new things, again, one of the things is that we can do a lot of this through the UI. So if I want to create a new project, all I have to do is click create project, and then give it a name, give it a description, indicate whether I want it to be secret, which means only I can see it, or indicate whether it's locked. And what locked means is that users have to have at least the viewer permission to see the feature sets within the project. This is not the only way to create a project, however. If I was in the feature set view and I wanted to register a feature set, I can either associate a new feature set with an existing project that I have, or I can add a new project at this screen. So let's say I wanted to add a new feature set into my test project here. And so I can give it a name, I can give it a description, and then we allow for metadata tagging. So, and that also helps the searching and some of the metadata things. And then we can either define the schema manually, or we can extract it in a programmatic manner. For the sake of the demo, we're just going to take a quick look at the manual definition. So we can add the features individually. We give the features a name. We can select their types, add a description and annotation for what this means. Is it a primary key, a partition column? What kind of feature type should it be? Do you need to perform anomaly detection on it? Now, you heard a bit about in AT&T's use that they have transactional fraud data, or things that are potentially fraud running through their systems. So you need to handle special data. So if you enable special data, you can flag certain things like, is this some sort of PCI or SPI data, just generally sensitive? And if these are enabled, then there are two different consumer roles that can access the feature set. There's the regular consumer, which sees masked or tokenized values of the data. And then there's a sensitive consumer, which is allowed to see the unmasked values. And then you can also set whether things are secret, or if you want to override the automatic time travel column and create your own, give it a name and give it a format. And then whether you want that time travel column to be the partition or not. So we'll go back a step. And what if I had wanted to do this? Excuse me. What if I wanted to instead do this programmatically? Well, then I can select what kind of data type it is. It's CSV, a Parquet file, Snowflake table, etc. And then I define where that is and what sort of cloud storage is involved. And then I could initiate it, and that registers the feature set. And then you can kick off the job to do that. So we can actually do that real quick with a new feature set. Let's add it in the test here. And so this is a prostate data set that you may have seen in our H2O3 demos in the past. So give me a second to pull up the URL so we can feed this data in. going to extract the schema. It's a CSV file in this case, and this is AWS S3. Oh, live demo failure. We'll jump over here where I already did it then. And so
we are doing it's Kuba here. Hello. We are using the HTTP's data source, which is available in different deployment, not in internal dedicated. This is a little bit. You are in QA. No, you just switched. Okay, I see.
I have both open because I thought that might happen in internal dedicated, so I had it handy.
Older version.
Yeah. So this is the feature set ingested, so we can take this is after the registration, so we can, now queue up the ingestion. Again, we kind of set the same thing. Tell it it's an AWS, and then go ahead and tell it to run. And now we see it's populated in the jobs area, so we can kind of take a look at how is it progressing. Not present yet, that's okay. And you saw we got a notification that popped up when something's happening. So it would just run. And then in terms of some of the other features, so for some programmatic access, you'll need to set up personal access tokens. So we have the web UI that'll allow you to do this, so you can enable that. And we have linking to the help and documentation. Oh, we have another raised hand here. Let's see if we can get this one here. Hello, you should be able to unmute yourself and talk.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We actually have a private LLM that we're demoing right now, and we've got it running in AWS on an EC2 instance. Yes. And we're sort of testing it out and whatever. This is great presentation, but before you went any further, we were curious, can we tie this in with a strictly private LLM that's just not allowed to get out to the internet and all that kind of stuff, or how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So, the online feature store is caching, so that can be used in a similar way as a vector database. So you could definitely attach your LLM to the online feature store, for example, or if you had something more like a RAG model where you had a bunch of PDFs and things, you could use the offline storage to load that because it's an object store. So yeah, you could tie into this and it would stay. The AI cloud is deployable either as a managed service where it's our managed cloud offering. It can be deployed in your cloud VPC. So if you have your own, private AWS account, it can all live there. And since it's as long as you have Kubernetes, we can also go inside your data center. So we're happy to bring this wherever you are.
Fantastic. All right, good. And I'm assuming too that just a quick follow-up question.
Sure.
This is great to see. I noticed I was looking around this past week, and like you can get LLM Studio, but LLM Data Studio is an add-on. Can we bring all of those parts of features of the feature store, or is that simply a different app?
Currently they're different apps, but some of our own roadmap involves various add-ons to empower ETL, and so there is some discussion as to like what the future state of these things are at. But since the LLM space is so fast moving, that's something that's kind of been moving on its own just to kind of keep up with everything. So as we continue to like hardenize and productize things, I suspect you'll see a flavor of that, but that's not how it works in the here and now. Just for full transparency.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for the question. And then, as we've kind of indicated a few times, everything that can happen in the UI can also happen in the CLI. And pretty much most of the major things that you want to do in the CLI can happen in the UI. The CLI tends to be a little bit ahead of the UI, but we try to keep them now as close to parity as possible. So Kuba, do you want to kind of give us a quick run through of the notebook here?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I can do that very quickly. It's can you scroll for me when I speak? Perfect. So at the start, you do usual basic stuff where we connect to the specific environment. We can get the versions of Python of the client and backend. We try to be backwards compatible. In the minor versions, we always are backwards compatible. Version 1.0 broke that promise because it's really a new major version. So that's just a heads up, if you will be using that version, you will need new Python client or Scala client. And how it really works is Chris showed us in UI that we can define a feature set based on either manual or schema or extraction of schema. So here we define the feature set based on the prostate.csv file, which is located on this path. You can run the code which will extract the schema. We also have the asynchronous APIs, which you can do just so the job will really run on the backend, so you don't need to wait for it. Then creating a project and registering a feature set. What I would like to point here, really nothing special here, what you see, but the flow argument. Our feature store is doing both offline and online capabilities. And with specification of this flow argument, you can define how is the propagation between online and offline working. By default, we do automatic syncs. What it means that if you ingest into the offline, we automatically populate the latest values for specific primary keys to the online store, so you can get them in terms of milliseconds, and the vice versa. If you ingest into the online, we also, after specific threshold, we do another ingestions. We do ingest those data into the offline for keeping the record. What I would like to mention here, because it's a nice work we are working on right now in version 1.1, which is, let's say, 1 month ahead of us. We will implement the missing UI online feature store capabilities in UI, so people will be able to ingest and retrieve from our online feature store. And then you can ingest, which ingest is the operation which stores data into the feature set. The source can be, again, any supported data sources which are documented in our documentation. We do support Delta tables, Snowflake tables, any JDBC connections, data in S3, Parquet files, CSV files. Lots of data sources are supported, and we hope that we will be adding more based on the demand. So you can really do the ingestions from any of these data sources. Each ingestion creates a new version, minor version of a feature set, which is really important aspect, because when people work with feature sets, they work with specific versions. It means that the data has really specific number of rows and is always constant. We never change something under the hood automatically for the users. If you need to work with different version of feature set, you need to obtain a new instance of the feature set with a specific version, or if you don't do it, if you don't specify it, you will get the latest version. So what we really try to do, be really consistent and really make sure that we never break data automatically for anyone. The data should be really always consistent. Then we go the retrieve. Retrieve is really the operation where you get the data. This is where mostly the data scientists and the consumers of the data come into the play. They have the data pre-populated in feature store, and they search the data catalog in UI, and they discover, hey, I really like this feature set. I would like to get the data from it. So we call this operation a retrieve. We have two variants how to retrieve a feature set. One is downloading the files, which will download you Parquet files, which you can then load into an environment you want and work with those. For bigger data sets, you can also, for any data sets, but mostly for bigger makes sense, you can also use retrieval via Spark. This requires you or your DevOps engineers to do a little bit of configuration on your Spark end, so you can do this communication, but we provide all the artifacts you need for that. And what you get from it, you don't need to wait for something to download. You will get almost instant feedback from Spark, and you can see and work with the data. All Spark functionalities are allowed, so you can do filtering, joins, and everything in Spark. What we can also do, because I mentioned online and offline syncs, you see here that we can also retrieve from online based on my favorite number 42. So we just got the record from the online, and you can see that I only ingested into the offline. It was automatically propagated to the online. And the same I can see vice versa. If I ingest new row into the online, I wait the duration in our environment is 50 minutes. I can see that new version was created, the 1.2, which represents the new row which was ingested into the online, and after those 50 minutes to the offline. and I can see that I will retrieve it using Spark, and I can see that I filtrate for the column 999 with ID 999. I can see that it's in the offline as well. And you can delete, and delete. We didn't want to show it this live because some of these operations are really background jobs, which really users don't need to really wait for. They just are automatically running, and you can use Feature Store during that time. So that was really a super quick presentation of really basic capabilities. We can do much more. You can create major versions. You can schedule ingestions, and many more.
It's probably appropriate to kind of call out that all of this is documented on docs.h2o.ai/feature store, where you can look in detail at the APIs, get the specifics on how they all work, and look at various examples and more about the supported data sources and the derived transformations and other things that we've talked about so far. Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Kuba. I think it's now time to kind of open things up, see if anybody has any other questions. You can type in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you so you can ask live.
Hey.
If there are no questions so far, what I would like to mention in the meanwhile, maybe we'll get some questions in the meanwhile, is that what we really try to do in our feature store is not just to really store data. It's not just data catalog, but we really try to be enterprise friendly. So we do lots of, like Chris showed, we do respect different permission flows. You can request approved permissions. We also introduced based on the real AT&T input, we were inspired the review process. So when someone creates a feature set, it's not automatically displayed to everyone in the company or organization. There needs to be specific people who can approve those feature sets. They can see the data. They can see, hey, this data are market sensitive or not sensitive, and they can decide. They can approve, reject. So there is lots of respecting of these enterprise flows, which makes our feature store, I would say, really interesting for these use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to give a sneak peek for what's ahead in 1.1, which is upcoming and ahead?
Yeah, what we are working right now is our release 1.1, which will be part of all major clouds, which we are offering hybrid cloud and managed cloud services. We are in UI, we try to fill the gap of not being able to ingest and retrieve from UI. So that's being worked on. And mostly we would like to keep improving the performance of online store so we can really handle the huge data requirements which we are being asked to support. So we are already improving that in really huge scales, but there is still room for improvement. So that's the main goal for now.
Great. Pratibha, any parting words of wisdom or vision that you like to see for your implementation of the feature store and where else you're headed?
Yes, absolutely. So we are at a point where we want to bring in more feature variety within Feature Store, right? In AT&T, and that's what we're. The more variety we have, the more it is going to help. The more it's going to accelerate the entire machine learning lifecycle. So that's what we are focused on right now, to bring in more feature variety, and also how can we plug in the Gen AI aspect of it. So that's going. And again, all the Feature Store has all the metadata that's going to be critical, and that's also important for any users who come in and start using the data and understand how it is being built, right? So that is where we are focusing on right now, to bring more feature variety and use the metadata that's available to promote the usability of data from Feature Store. And we have been tracking that. We've been tracking how many models have been impacted by the features that have been retrieved from Feature Store, and also promote the new capabilities that are coming our way, right? The point and click citizen data scientist capability. How are we supporting the uh, the truth set building without having to really do it integrate that into the notebook with just from the UIs. I think those are all the capabilities that we are focusing on within AT&T. And that we do see a huge response from our AT&T community internally, because it's cloud agnostic. We have this plugged in with Databricks. We have this plugged in into Snowflake, and that is the biggest advantage that we have. It's cross-platform and cloud agnostic, that we do support different cloud technologies within AT&T.
Thank you for that. It looks like we have a question. You want to go ahead and ask?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate this opportunity to meet you guys, and you taking your time to teach us some things. I'm actually an application developer, a web developer, software guy, and some of this is a little over my head. I'll be honest with you. I'm not quite down the road as far as I'd like to be, but I was wondering if you had any advice for how to kind of dip my toe into H2O AI systems, and where I should start. Where should I go as a software developer who is I'm looking at LangChain and a couple of other ways to develop and talk to AI models. And I was just wanting your opinion, and I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So on the H2O website, there's a lot of documentation around our various components, but also kind of very importantly, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have many, many, many recorded talks on a variety of topics. So digging through there tends to be your best guiding light to kind of get the walkthroughs, sort of like in this session on the feature store. You can see it for the whole suite of products, anything from our open source offerings for H2O3, which is the scalable machine learning models, things in the LLM space, as well as the more proprietary stuff that's in our AI cloud offering. So I would just say that docs.h2o.ai, and then on our YouTube channel. Those are kind of like your key primary sources. There is a community Slack that you can join, and a Discord. So like particularly on the LLM Discord server. So feel free to pop into those places as well to ask additional questions. We're always happy to engage.
Okay. Hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Do you have any other questions?
I have dropped the link in the chat for our YouTube page. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, I will go ahead and close it out. Thank you to Chris and Pratibha and Kuba for giving a great and very informative session today. And a big thanks to you all for joining our Feature Store 1.0 release webinar. As I mentioned earlier, we'd like to offer you all a complimentary pass for our upcoming H2O Open Source Gen AI World Conference in San Francisco on November 7th. We will be sending out a follow-up email after the webinar that will include a recording as well as this promotional code to use for a complimentary pass, additional information on the event, and information on how you can get started with a Feature Store trial. So thank you again. We hope you have a great rest of your day and look forward to connecting soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.